This video will look at how to configure your portal settings. So firstly we go to System and then Portals, and from here you'll see a list of any portals that you currently have with your system. To edit the portal, we click the green tick icon. So the first section allows us to edit some of the basic details of the portal, so we can amend the name of the portal. We can also change the default meta description and keywords for SEO purposes. We can set a default page layout which can still be overridden per page. The from email address will be used to send emails to customers if completing forms online, and if the form is being submitted to the system, then it will be delivered to this email address rather than from the email address. A company is assigned to the portal, and this should always be your own company. And we also have a default address, so this is used on things like the quote and order templates, and it may also appear in the footer of your website. The next section relates to the merchant module. So there's a number of different settings that can be set as defaults, which are then overridden per company or per customer. So the quote expiry allows us to set how long a quote can last before it is no longer valid and expires. We can also set quotes to be deleted in the system after a certain number of days. The quote variance threshold allows you to monitor fluctuations in product prices. So if you have any active quotes and the pricing changes by more than 4% or whatever is configured here, we can have email notifications go off to let you know of those changes. You have the option to standardize the numbers of your quotes, orders, invoices and purchase orders by optionally adding in a prefix and or a suffix to those numbers. We can set a default sales rep, so for anyone who doesn't have an account manager, their orders will go directly to that sales rep. We can set a default account administrator, so out of the box the eMark system's order workflow supports 2 levels of approvals. So the first one is the sales rep and the second one is an account administrator. So there is a separate interface to set up different account administrators, and this is just setting the default. The default escalation timeout for companies is the number of minutes that an order should sit with a line manager before it is escalated to the next person in that company for an order authorization. So this setting can also be overridden per company. You have the ability to give customers the option to submit orders without logging into the system. So by ticking the allow anonymous checkout, rather than having to log in, the customer will be presented with an extra option to check out anonymously. During the checkout, they'll then punch in some of their basic details, which will be then used to create an account for them automatically. By default, the eMark checkout is across 2 pages, the first page being where the customer selects their billing and delivery addresses, and then the following page is where they select their payment options. The single step checkout merges those 2 into a single page. By ticking Show Freight Calculator, the freight calculator will appear on the shopping basket and on the product template if your product template supports it. The Allow Customers to Quote will give the customer the ability to create their own quotes on the product page as well as the shopping basket. We can show pricing with or without tax, and by toggling this we will change the default. This can also be overridden per user. And you can also define your own terms and conditions which will appear on your order template. The next section relates to the CRM module. So the default user security policy defines things such as how long a login should last before requiring to log in again, as well as how long a user should be restricted from being able to log in after a certain number of failed attempts. The use captcha for new registrations will add a Google Captcha field to the registration page to minimize spam bots. The password entered at registration checkbox allows you to turn on or off the password field on the registration page. So if this is turned off, rather than the customer entering their password, when they attempt to first log in to the system, they will need to reset their password. With our company contact workflow, you have the ability to receive reminders periodically if contact has not been made with the company, and this setting will allow you to set the default. This can then be overridden per company. We can set the default number of billing days, and this can also be overridden per company or customer. Moving back to the top of the page, we then have the payment settings. So depending on the payment methods that you've activated on your system, some of these will or won't be relevant to yourself. To use BPay, you need to enter a biller code. For direct deposit, we need to enter your account name, number and BSB. If you're using the ESEC payment gateway, you need to add a merchant ID. We also support the ANZ payment gateway, which requires an access code and a secure hash. Additionally, we support the Payment Express payment gateway, which requires a user ID and a key. For PayPal, we require a username, password and signature, which are API credentials, not your personal login details. We also support the NAB Transact payment gateway, which requires a username, password and a 3D secure code. There's also two other options which you'll need to discuss with your account manager at NAB for using 3D secure and risk management. We also support SecurePay's latest product, Secure Frame, which requires a merchant ID, a password, and also has 3D Secure and Use Fraud Guard options. For SecurePay, you can also restrict which cards you want to support, and you can also set a different surcharge for each credit card. We also have support for some accounting system codes which can be entered here. If your portal has multiple warehouses for product stock, we can set a default warehouse which will be used to display stock levels on the front end of the website. So scrolling down the page, we then have some default role memberships. So for approved registrations in the system, we can set some default permissions. So if your system is not using the registration approval system, all new registrations will automatically inherit the roles that you add here. We have a default role membership list for sales reps, so when creating a new sales rep through the sales rep management interface, any roles here will be automatically inherited by that sales rep. And the third list is for unapproved registrations. So this is only applicable to systems where you are using the registration approval workflow. And what this means is when a customer first registers on the portal, they'll have whatever list you supply here, and the moment that they then get approved by the registration approval manager, those roles will be dropped and replaced with whatever was in the approved registration list. So this means we can go and add the users into an unapproved role, which might have a very cut down list of permissions, so it could hide things like product prices or certain types of products from displaying, and then once they are approved and they go into whatever standard user roles you wish to give them, they then gain access to that. Once you're happy with all those changes, we just click Save at the bottom of the page to update the portal settings.